Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
So tonight we are talking about the book Thought and Life, and we are talking about chapter 4. And are you able to see my screen? Wonderful. So this book Thought and Life was written by Emmanuel. It's a very small book. In fact, it's so small and so thin. It's just a few chapters, and each chapter is just 1 or 2 pages. But with Emmanuel being an elevated spirit, there's so much that's packed into each one of these pages, each one of these words, in fact, that my hope is that we will get a lot from tonight's talk. So we're on chapter 4, and this is a quick review of the last 3 chapters. So in the first chapter, we learned from the introduction of the book that its full intention was to prepare us as souls who are going to reincarnate as a guidance for the wisdom and to the love of God. Now, this book was written initially for those who are preparing to reincarnate. And so it was given to us now as a guidance here in our incarnations now. And chapter 1 was the initial teaching of the mind being a mirror of life, that our minds are constantly reflecting what we think about, and then our thoughts then begin to reflect the images that not only that we receive, but we project, and then we reflect that out into the kind of life that we lead. So our thoughts are a mirror of our life. And in chapter 2, we learned about the will, and the metaphor that was given to us is the will or the mind as an office that has like many departments and many divisions, like a big office building, but with the will as the leader and the administrator of all these different parts of our being. So the department of desire and the department of memory and the department of activity, all of these components of our mind, but run by the leader, which is the will that decides if we will do that or not. And then so our last chapter we reviewed was chapter 3, cooperation. That was a few weeks ago. And this chapter really gives us the idea of the interbeing, the interconnectedness that we all have, and how cooperation and constructive collaboration are essential for the workings of the universe. It's essential for evolution. And most importantly, it's a critical quality for a good leader, because a good leader who leads but without collaboration or without cooperation does not produce the kind of good results that can be produced when we do have cooperation. And so just a quick reminder from the introduction, right? So not only was the introduction telling us that the intention of the book was for us to be prepared for this incarnation, for this book to be a guidance to the wisdom of love and God, it also gives us this, and it's kind of the language that's used is pretty important here. It says it's important to inform you yet again that it is our thought process that is a reflection of our lives, and it creates the kind of life that we lead, until one day throughout the millennia, we shall identify ourselves with the infinite wisdom and the infinite love that constitutes the thought and life of our Father. Well, how do we do that? I mean, the book gives us some guidance, but there's this resistance, I think, that we have sometimes. You know, we want to identify with the infinite wisdom and infinite love of God, but then we've got so much happening in our lives. We have so many things that are on our mind, right? So many thoughts to think about, so many details to keep track of, so many projects, so many concerns, and then these occupy space in our mind. And with the law of physics and 2 things that cannot occupy the same place at the same time, we can't have 2 thoughts at the same time. So if we're thinking about all of the things that we're worried about, you know what we're not thinking about is our identification with the infinite wisdom and infinite love. That's the thought and life of our Father. So how do we do that? So this chapter, this is an instruction of the different ways we can instruct ourselves to do this. So one of the beautiful things that I wanted to share with you tonight is this idea of the golden key, right? So the golden key is this, I'm going to just pause my share real quick because I want to show you this in the right way. And I'll tell you about it while I'm doing this. So the golden key is this prayer that was written by Emmett Fox in the turn of the century. And Emmett Fox was this a minister from the Unity Church, and he had this idea that if we would pray, and when we prayed, if we made the most simple prayer possible, right? And that if we prayed like this, in this very simple way, that we could take control of how our mind was showing up. And so I would like to share that with you. Let me share my screen again so that you can see all of it, because I don't want you to miss any of this because it's so powerful. So the golden key is this. It is that we stop thinking about our difficulties and we start thinking about God. That is literally it. And now it seems very simple, right? But, who do we have to be to think about God? What happens when we get distracted? And the instruction that's given is, don't try to form a picture of God, which is impossible, right? Work by rehearsing everything that we know about God, thinking about all of the attributes of God, right? God is wisdom, God is truth, God is inconceivable love, God is everywhere present, right? Which is omnipresent, right? God has infinite power, or God is omnipotent, and God knows everything, or omniscient, and so on. Like, there's so many different attributes of God. And so what I would like to ask you all to do, because this is going to be the lens through which we view the rest of this evening. So I'd like to invite you, if you feel comfortable doing this, to either you can speak it out loud, or if you feel more comfortable, you can type it into the chat. But I would love to hear from you, what other attributes of God that we can think about, right? We know God is love, God is peace, God is wisdom. What else is God that we can think about and attach to the golden key as we work our way through tonight's lecture? Now, hopefully you were at the Spirits book, chapter 1 lecture given by Angiata a few weeks back, where she talked a lot about the different attributes of God. So for those of you who are there, that's a review. However, we all have a personal relationship and a personal understanding of the vastness of the nature of God to our particular perspective. So I invite you all, please just consider at any time, either now. You can't see my presentation? Oh, okay. All right. So God is compassion. God is merciful. Yes, yes, yes. I love that. And so keep bringing them into the chat as you can. And so one of the things that we can do, so if we get distracted, like we're trying to think about God, but we can't stop thinking about the details, and we can't stop thinking about the things that we are worried about, or if we're frightened, or if we're very worried, it can be difficult to get our thoughts away from these material things. So one thing that we can do is, it doesn't matter, how well we think about these things, we just have to say them repeatedly. And so this is what came up first, right? So we can say any of these things, right? There's no power but God. We can say, I am the child of God, and filled with and surrounded by the perfect peace of God. We can say God is love, or God is guiding me right now, or just the simplest of all, God is with me. It's like that song that we listened to at the very beginning. The first line of the song is, God is here with us right now, right? God is with us right now. And then let's look at what we have in the chat, right? We can say God is merciful, God is compassion. There's some beautiful things that were placed into the chat. God is justice. Yes, God is the beginning of everything. So just think about it just try it for just a second. Try it with me. Whatever you're thinking about right now that is not God, just stop and just start thinking about God. Just think to yourself, God is infinite. God is merciful. God is divine justice. Whatever those things are, and add, if anything comes to you, put that into the chat so that we can all benefit from this collective awareness of God. Because while we're thinking about that, something really amazing happens. I mean, who do we have to be? God is creation. I love that, Chiago. Thank you. Who do we have to be to spend all of our time thinking about the material concerns, thinking about things that annoy us, thinking about things we're afraid of, thinking about things that have already happened that we can't even undo. Or what do you think happens to us if we think about the magnificence of God? Stay with me on this journey, and we'll use the golden key to open our way through this lesson tonight. And so this is now from the book Thought and Life, right? So the first part of the book, it says, it has been said that two wings are needed for the human spirit to ascend to God. One is called love, and the other is called wisdom. Now, we know that a bird with only one wing cannot fly, right? And it cannot fly well if one wing or the other one is weak. And so this is the need now to have some balance as we begin to develop and cultivate ourselves. And then also from our message, I think it was last week, the last class from chapter 3, cooperation, it says goodwill and cooperation are the two master columns in the edifice of human fraternity, so that the earthly mind might be put into harmony with divine mind, an inviolable plan has been revealed. So this is from the book Living Spring, chapter 3, which is called Cooperation. We reviewed this last time we met when we talked about chapter 3, which is also called Cooperation. So interesting thing happening there. But if goodwill and cooperation are the master columns in the edifice of human fraternity, so the earthly mind can be put into harmony with divine mind, and we know that love and wisdom ascend the human spirit to God, how do we get in harmony with divine mind? How do we use these wings of love and wisdom to ascend to God? Well, if we don't know, here's something that we do know, is that sometimes things can be locked into chambers of our awareness, but they can be unlocked with that key. And the key is to stop thinking about that thing that is troubling us, or that thing that we don't know how to do, or maybe we're not sure of, and begin to turn that golden key and begin to be thinking about God. And we can say to ourselves, the infinite love and wisdom of God are with me right now. God is with me right now. The vastness of God's magnificence is in my awareness right now. And when we say these things and we begin to visualize like what that attribute is, it's hard to visualize what God is. We don't even try, but the different attributes, we know what wisdom is, we just expand our awareness of it. And as we do this, we expand our capacity then to begin to absorb the instruction that we're being given in this chapter of Thought and Life, chapter 4, called Instruction. And so the next part of this talks about through love, right? So through love, which is above all, service to our fellow beings. Through love, we are illuminated and made beautiful within, emitting a reflex of our own virtues that can benefit others. And so what this is telling us, right, is that when we love through service, right, because there's the 5 love languages or 4 love languages. I don't know how many, I haven't read the book, but I know that there's these multiple ways that, we as humans on the human sphere like to be loved, right? But then there's this love that is above all of them, that is like the fraternal love, or the agape love, that is our love for one another the way that we love God, that doesn't have any dependencies on speaking the right love language, and it doesn't have any dependencies on reciprocity. So it's unconditional, right? There are no conditions attached to this love. And then when we engage in service or in charitable works, even if it's moral charity in the sphere of the family domain with our loved ones, or in the sphere of our work life with those that we may not have a familial love with, but we are there as fraternal brothers and sisters united around the common good of the organization that is helping us to pay our bills. When we are offering ourselves to that service from that place of unconditional love, that is what creates this beauty inside of us and illuminates us. And you know what's interesting? There's a multi-billion-dollar industry that is designed right now to take the money that you earn from these worthy endeavors to convince us to try to beautify our outsides, to beautify this temporary human body. There are billions of dollars generated in gross national product just in the United States alone on products for our hair, products for our skin, products for our body, products to change the skin of our body, products to change the composition of our body. There's, you name it, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And if we think about how we spend our lives and how much of our time we spend thinking about beautifying our outsides, I'm not making the case that we should not take care of ourselves. I myself like a nice hair product. I myself love to wear makeup. I'm not saying that we need to be above that. What I'm suggesting is that there's an opportunity for us to think about how can we maybe balance that, right? Those two wings, love and wisdom, right? So what if we thought about taking the actions that would beautify us from the inside to complement all those external products that we're using, right? That service through love beautifies us, and not just beautifies us, it illuminates us, like this beautiful picture of this flower, right? It lights us up from within. So can you imagine that? What thinking about the infinite love of God will do to us as we do this service? What would it do to the type of service that we give? How do you think it will make people feel when they're in the presence of you, when you are giving the service through unconditional love while thinking about the infinite nature of God's capacity to love unconditionally? Just think about that for a minute. Like let that magnificence sink in. I'm going to check the chat real quick and see if anyone else has put in any other attributes of God for us to begin, because the last one begin. Oh, creation. Yes, keep them coming. As you think of them, please keep them coming, because this is a collective space now that we're going to be creating together that will help us as we move through this instruction tonight. And so it's also through love that all of these things are in quotes, by the way, because these are direct passages from the book. Right? So these are all quotes from chapter 4 of Thought and Life, entitled Instruction. So Emmanuel tells us, through love, we are able to better undertake life. And so undertake, it's like an older time word, but it means to commit oneself, to begin, to agree to do a task, right? And so what is that task? What that task is to see love everywhere. We have more. So God is supreme perfection, supreme science. Yes, I love this. So then if we think about the task being to love with our eyes open and to live life with more ease, right? Without expectations, it's easier to see our way, like when we are illuminated from within, right? And how do we illuminate ourselves from within? Well, we learned already in the previous slide that we do that through loving service, through unconditional love, and also through that same golden key, right? That light that shines within us is also, is that light that shines within us? Yes, is charity. Absolutely. Oh my goodness, God is supreme charity. All of the attributes of God that we just named are God's act of charity to us, right? Offering us God offering us God's infinite wisdom. I'm intentionally degendering God, because God has no gender. We in our limited perception often say the Father or he or him, but truly God has to reduce God to a gender when even we as spirits can change gender is probably a limitation we're placing. So I'm intentionally degendering God. So God and God's infinite wisdom absolutely is that gives us charity. God and God's infinite supreme perfection and supreme science, all science on earth that we have is through our connection, through divine mind. That is an act of charity. Thiago, I 100% agree with that. 100%. And so then we learned that through love, we illuminate ourselves from within. That through love, we learn how to undertake life with our eyes wide open, looking for love, intentionally seeking to find love and to see love in all that we say, think, and do, and to offer ourselves that way. But it's now through wisdom. Right now, wisdom begins with the acquisition of knowledge. Many times we confuse the two. We think someone who's read a lot of books or who's gone to a lot of schooling and has a lot of advanced degrees, that knowledge obtained is actually wisdom. This is not to disrespect all of the knowledge that's been gained. We're required to gain knowledge, but wisdom is different. Wisdom starts with the acquisition of knowledge. Right? And it's through that acquisition of knowledge, which is, again, we're thinking about the topic of instruction, instructing ourselves to have the best incarnation we can to evolve, right? So it's through the acquisition of knowledge that we gather influences from those who have gone before us, right? That's right. When you go to school or when you're reading a book, you're taking knowledge from someone who's come before you. And so the ones that have come before us, they send us the reflection of their own greatness, right? Which impels us, especially if we are taking in elevated instruction, impels us towards heaven, right? Impels us towards the light. Now, remember, knowledge is a collection of data that we have acquired. Wisdom is something different. Now, the dictionary says that wisdom is the soundness of an action or a decision with regard to the application of experience, knowledge, and good judgment, right? So knowledge is what data you've collected in your mind, and wisdom is the ability to apply it to a good decision, right? That makes use of your experience and the knowledge and good judgment. So now we're getting a little bit closer to what we are being instructed to pay attention to in this chapter called Instruction from Thought and Life. And so then we're told, that through wisdom, life increases its value. Life has more value when we take what we learn and we put it into practice, right? Life has more value when we take what we learn and we put it into practice in a way that will improve ourselves, right? Life has more value when we're not only improving ourselves, but we're helping others, right? And evolving our spirit. Because that's the ultimate point, right? This is the intention of this incarnation. This is the intention of the soul's existence, is to evolve. That is literally why we are here. Now, here on this planet Earth, our job truly is to learn to love. And we're being asked now in this level of instruction to add wisdom in balance, right? In order for us to evolve. But there's also, this message from the spirit Laura. So Laura in the book Nosolar was the mother of Lysias. And Lysias was one of Andre Luis's instructors in the spiritual city called Nosolar, where he went after he discarnated after the life of being a doctor in Rio de Janeiro. And what Laura told him is that we should all act like bees, approaching the flower of life, extracting from each the substance of good examples to acquire the honey of wisdom. Now, to put this into context, right? So this is coming from a part of the book where Andre Luis, as the spirit, he's feeling very overwhelmed and stuck. And he's having some challenges with what's happening with his family back on Earth. And he's wanting to help, and he's really struggling and feeling stuck. But then he remembers this thing that Laura tells him. And then he starts remembering all of the good examples that he has observed in Nosolar. For example, he observed Minister Veneranda, who was one of his teachers there as well, that she was a spirit, an elevated spirit that had been working for centuries. Most of us don't even want to work 6 days in a row. We don't even want to work 5 days without a break. This particular spirit worked centuries with no days off. And the only purpose of her work was to be able to help her spiritual group. There was folks in her spiritual group that needed help. So she worked all that and is most likely still working to help them. He remembers Narcisa. She was another soul that worked in a place in the city of Nosolar, the spiritual city, called the Rectification Chambers. It was one of the departments that was a hospital that helped newly discarnated spirits who had just come from the umbral, which is this region of the spiritual of the spiritual realm where a lot of suffering souls are releasing a lot of heavy and negative energy. So it's a very heavy and dense place. So when spirits leave the umbral, when they're rescued from the umbral to go to this first stop in Nosolar, which is also in the region of the umbral, just elevated up a little bit, this place, the Rectification Chambers, is very dark. It's like full of suffering people. And Narcisa, she doesn't have to work there. I mean, these people are like vomiting black substances and she's cleaning them. And this is really difficult work for her as a spirit. But why is she doing it? She's doing it because she wants an endorsement to return to Earth to help her loved ones. Because in the spiritual realm, we have to earn the right to help each other. So that's why when we are asking for help from the spiritual realm, we have to remember too that, we need to have the right to ask for that help, as well as those that we're asking need to also have earned the right to help us. This is now the cooperation, the interconnectedness of things. But Andre remembers these examples of divine love. All of these are examples of divine love. And his remembrance of them, he remembers Laura telling him this. And this energizes him. And it helps him to make an informed choice, which he's able to do. But he was exercising the golden key. He's remembering right? This examples of divine love. Instead of thinking about all the problems he was having, he thought about, look at all of these examples of the right thing to do. These are examples of divine love. He was thinking literally about the attributes of God. And he was able to find a chamber in his being open and was able to do what he needed to do. And well, I don't want to spoil what happens next because we have people on our who are studying on Saturday with us, studying that book, and we haven't got to that chapter yet. So I'm not gonna, no spoiler alerts. But anyway, Andre Luis was practicing the golden key. So love and wisdom need to work together, right? And so what we're learning here is that it says goodness, which is ignorant, is like a well that quenches the thirst of the traveler, but it doesn't show him the way. So like the traveler's like thirst, has the thirst handled, like not thirsty, but you're still stumbling. You're still struggling. You haven't gotten anywhere. You're just no longer thirsty, right? Intelligence devoid of love is like a useful signpost that it shows you the way. So now you're not lost anymore, but you're thirsty. So neither one of those, right? Those two wings, right? Both of those are kind of broken wings, right? And so Emmanuel is saying to us, this is again directly from the book, chapter 4, hence the imperative need for intelligence and goodness or love to go hand in hand. And so when we think about this, right, it's, like what's goodness without wisdom, right? This is this idea sometimes where we love, but we don't correct, right? We have to correct, right? Especially if you're a parent. But there's also, something to think about, right? The gospel says that, at what point should we point out people's evil, right? At what point should we do that, or people's faults, right? At what point do we correct? And so we're told by the good spirits that we correct or point out evils only if they're going to harm other people. If they're only harming themselves, that's fine. But if they're going to harm other people, then we need to speak up. So loving them without speaking up is an example of us leaving them lost, right? So there are many, many, many examples here. I just wanted to bring you one from the spiritual realm. And then if we think about intelligence without love, this is where you might know the way. Oh, Angiata, yes, you're going to say something.
Yeah, I just thought about an example of goodness without intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
You know how they say when you are in a plane that you should put, if something occurs, you should always put the mask on you first before helping the others. And I think that this could be an example of goodness and love without intelligence. Is that, sometimes even if you are good and you have lots of love inside of you, it's important that we have certain self-care for us. And this is when the intelligence comes into play before we can even think on going and helping the other. So it's like putting the mask first and to be able to help others.
Yes, there's a beautiful and perfect example. I love that. And if anyone else has any other examples of goodness without intelligence or of intelligence without love, feel free to call them out. You can raise your hand. You can put them in the chat. We'd love to hear from you, because this space, what happens when we collectively are connected to when we are collectively connected to the divine mind and the divine consciousness, there's an expansion of our awareness that takes place. And so it's a gift to share it with each other if you're willing to do that. So again, there's many, many examples. We'd love to hear from you. I'll give just one of each. For intelligence without love, this is the where you may know the way and you can show the way, but without love, like, will people even listen to you, right? Or if they listen to you, will they even be inspired? Sharing again the link to the prayers book. Oh, thank you, Angiata. Yes, so those of you that if you have any prayer requests or anyone that you'd like us to pray for on Wednesday nights, you can just click that link and then put the names in there. And then that stops the chat from kind of blowing up. And then I can look in the chat for the attributes of God or any examples of goodness without intelligence or intelligence without love. So thank you very much, Angiata. So if love illuminates us from within, which we learned earlier, so we can find our way, well, wisdom helps us to make good choices and to also show others the way with that love, with that light that's illuminated from within that just can't be denied. Right? Just can't be denied. So one lesson for us to think about also, this is kind of a little warning, a little reminder from Emmanuel in our daily bread, is to do all of this, that we have to remember not to get too full of ourselves, right? We got to be really careful not to get too full of our, that with these wings of love and wisdom, that we don't start flying so high that we're like looking down on people. So this is a little reminder to stay centered. And so Emmanuel says, we cultivate love and wisdom within so that we can evolve, right? And be effective workers to the good. But to be effective, we got to do it with good manners. And that we should, says, do not overshadow by exhibiting the extent of the knowledge that you have mastered in the areas of love and wisdom. If you've decided to cooperate for the good of others, if you want to be understood, do not outshine them. And then so also from this chapter 43, the quote from Luke 14:10 says, take the lowest place, right? And this is sometimes counterintuitive for us. If we're saying, well, if we're going to evolve, then why would we take the lowest place? And if we are cultivating love and wisdom to help and show the way, well, how can we do that without exhibiting our love and wisdom? Well, here's the thing. We do the work. We still do it. It's just that we just don't do it to be seen, right? Like in The Messengers, the book The Messengers by Andre Louise, I think it was Aniceto that told Andre, when you come to our station and work, I'm just letting you know, we do not work for recognition. Nobody expects recognition. We collectively do the work. If any good is done by this band of workers that is undertaking missions for the good, nobody claims credit. We all work together. Nobody claims victory. But if there's a problem, we all own the problem. And so Andre is like, wait, I've been wait, what? I'm used to, I'm a doctor. I'm used to people saying, thank you, Dr. Louise, right? I'm used to this. And so that was an opportunity for him to begin to look at this particular lesson, like, oh, I need to not do this for recognition, right? So how do we navigate this? How do we access the part of ourselves that knows how to do this? The golden key, right? When we think, how can I do this in the right way? We stop thinking about what we're trying to do in the right way, and we start thinking about God. Start thinking about the infinite wisdom of God, how we have access to the awareness of the vastness of God's wisdom. If you've ever looked at the short YouTube movie called The Power of 10, if you haven't, highly recommend it. In 10 minutes, it zooms out to the 10th power. So you look at 1 foot and then 1 foot to the 10th power and then to the 10th power until you're looking at multiple galaxies away. And all of that comprises just the boundaries of what can be measured in just those 10 powers of 10. And all of that is just a microscopic pin in the vastness of the infinite nature of the universe. And God's wisdom is beyond even that. So we can start to imagine the vastness by just thinking about, millions of light years. How long does it take light, which travels at 186,000 miles per second? I'll say that again, 186,000 miles per second. And we're talking billions of light years, how long light can travel in a year. That's vast. And we can just sit and think about that. And I would invite you to try it and do it and see what opens up in you. When we're so busy looking down, we don't even look up. If we would just look up and behold and allow our awareness to just hold gently the vastness of the universe and how vast God is, the things that are troubling us would dissolve. The things themselves wouldn't, but the troubling nature of them would. And we'd find spaces within ourselves to address them. So the important thing is to do so from a place of humility. So we're told, right, we need instruction and love, right? That we need both. And that to study and to serve are inevitable routes, or, the way you drive, right? The road in the work of elevation, right? And so, one of the things in the book 50 Years Later, there's this one part of the book where there's a spiritual mentor that's helping a group of souls to reincarnate. And the spirit tells them, here you have acquired the most advanced knowledge in matters of wisdom and love. You have seen the beauty and happiness that await redeemed souls in the infinite. However, you must return to the flesh in order to test the value of your learning. And so it is on the earth that painful and blessed school of the soul, that the vast field of our accomplishments unfold, right? So this was an instruction that was given beforehand, but he was telling us, the spirit, that in the spirit realm, we do learn, we acquire a more advanced knowledge of wisdom and love. And so when we think about this, right, that that if in the spiritual realm, before we incarnated, that we learned a lot about wisdom and love, then we have to start thinking about things, right? There's also something else, Laura, Lysias's mother-in-law Solar said, like, the Most High gives wisdom to those who spend time learning, and more life and joy to those who know how to deny themselves, right? And so this is like, so to study is to gain the knowledge, and then to serve, that's the denying ourselves. Because let's be clear, I think it was Chiago that said that God is charity, right? So God is giving us so much of God's self so that we can evolve. And so we, in turn, we're told, right, love your neighbor, love one another as God loves us. So then we then deny a piece of ourselves in order to serve. So every time that we are engaging in charity work, or when we are speaking a kind word to someone who maybe, wasn't so kind to us first, or maybe we are not responding to someone unkindly who was unkind to us, or maybe we are just listening and just holding a beautiful space for someone who's suffering. All of these acts of love and service are a denial of a bit of ourselves, because face it, you could have been doing something else instead of doing that. But would that something else we would have been doing been a way that we could elevate us, right? And so when we think about how to get along that route to study and serve, there are some opportunities for us, right? And the most classic method of instruction here on earth, right, are schools and books, right? This is what we know. These are the normal routes of instructions. And we're told in chapter 4 of the book Thought and Life Instruction that a school is a center of spiritual influence where the teachers of today, that they continue the tasks of the instructors of yesterday, right? And that a book represents a powerful magnet of attraction, molding emotions and concepts that produce great movements in all of the great areas of evolution, right? Religion, science, ideas, and technology. But most importantly, and to the subject matter and the title of this book, thought, right? And activity. So this is what the spirits are telling us about school and books. But do we think about school that way? Do we think about books this way? Right? Profound wisdom and sincere universal love are essential requisites, right, to our evolution. And also that in the book No Solar, that was also told. Not Andre Louise was told by Lysias, his instructor, when he was learning about the different ministries in this spiritual city. The most elevated ministry is the one that's called the Ministry of Divine Union. And that's the ministry where the spirits there have attained the highest degree of like spiritualization, right? And their level of spiritualization is so high that that's actually the ministry that's responsible for magnetizing all the waters of Na Solar. And so, and Andre Louise was told that profound wisdom and sincere universal love are the essential requisites. You don't even get close to that ministry without having a high level of mastery of those. So this is to help us to elevate the way that we think. Let's see, as Anina mentioned in Saturday, light the candle and sending the light might change the day of the person that hurt you. Yes, yes, yes. Anina is one of the young souls that's young soul in a young body, but like an old soul, because this young lady is just wise beyond belief and very loving too. Yes, so this is beautiful, but that we light that candle, that's that illumination from within, right? And that if we intentionally do that, that we can really, really change the day. We can really, really change the day of someone, especially of someone that has hurt us. So super, super important. Thank you so much, Paula, for reminding me of that. So there's also books as creative energy, right? So this is, again, all these are direct quotes from the book. So the book, Thought and Life, chapter 4, instruction. So books are a dynamo. So dynamo, I had to look up that word. It's not a common word. It means a generator. It means something that produces. So books are a producer of creative energy where we find advanced telementalization. I had to look up that too. Like, what is that? Turns out it's not a word in our language, or the average language, but the spirits are saying that what telementalization is that over great distances of space and time, we can incorporate ideas from superior spirits who visited us many centuries ago. So that's deep, right? And this book, Thought and Life, is that example. Yes, it most certainly was. Yes, I love that. I love the light the candle. This book is definitely that example. This is why we should not read mindlessly, right? And to say we should digest every word when we're reading, because we're always looking for help, and it's always right there. And we can ask ourselves when we're reading, if we think about that books are a generator of creative energy, and we can telementalize energy from spirits from centuries or from time past. We should ask ourselves, like, what is God telling me right now? And how can I connect to the mind of God? And what does God want me to know? Right? These are questions that we can ask ourselves that also turn that golden key. So we're also told in this book instruction, this chapter instruction, that the teachers live on through their books, right? All the great writers, they come alive in the pages of the books that they wrote, right? Socrates and in the books that he's wrote, Jesus in the books from the apostles, and we know that the gospel, is this crystalline mirror. We learned before, right, in chapter 1, that our thought is a mirror, right? Thought is the mirror of life. And we learn now that the gospel is the crystalline mirror of the life of the master himself, of Jesus, through his divine reflection, guiding human behavior towards the construction of God's kingdom amongst all creatures. Well, here's the thing, right? Our thoughts are crystalline mirrors which produce outward and guide the human behavior of those around us, right? What would change in our behavior? What would change in what we generate if we were thinking about God and turning that golden key? What would change the way we light that candle that Anina mentioned, right? If we lit that candle from within and shined light on people around us, including and especially those that have hurt us, what do you think it would change? Do you think if we shined light, that not just any old light, right, but the light of that love that illuminates from within, what would change? I think that's a good question for us. So we're told that instruction also is connected to liberation, and that to get to know the teachings or the teachings of Spiritism is to undertake our own liberation by placing ourselves on the road to new horizons of life. And here's the thing, this road to the new horizons of life, boy, are there potholes, there are boulders, there are detours, there are mud pits, there are road closures, right? There's just every possible obstacle that are there. It's not so that we don't grow, they're there so that we do grow. But if we get stuck, what do? Right? We use what we've learned. We do like Andre Louise did, right? We can also practice that golden key, turn that golden key by thinking, what were the examples of those that came before us, right? And we have tons of examples if we would choose to think about them and how we might apply them instead of thinking about all of the details of the thing that's in front of us. And like has been said, those who insist on measuring the depth and consistency of a mud pit will end up covered in it. And while you're covered in it, it's very hard to travel down that road. So instruction actually leads to liberation as well. And so the bottom line for us, right, is that evolution equals choices. And again, all of these slides are direct quotes from the book. So these are not my words. Each one of these words is directly from Emmanuel in the book, Thought and Life, Chapter 4, Instruction. So it is our responsibility to always study and make the best choices so that our ideas and examples may reflect the idea and examples of the superior spirits of life. And so, in the book Better Days, it's one of my favorite books. I don't have it handy to show you, but it's by the spirit mentor, Joseph. He says, all the wisdom that you strive for is already enclosed in your spirit, right? So wisdom, remember, if we're going to make choices, making good choices depends on wisdom. It's not knowledge that produces good choices. It's wisdom. It's the ability to take that knowledge and make a good choice, right? Make a good choice based on your knowledge and your judgment. And so how do we access that wisdom, right? It's because sometimes we feel stuck, right? I'm going to probably sound like a broken record here, right? We start thinking about God and the magnificent mind of God. Remember, our thoughts are creative energy. The moment we start thinking about the attributes of divine mind, it is instantly accessible to us. All we have to do is think about it. That's all we have to do is turn that golden key. And so one of the things that comes from the gospel, it says, Spiritists, love one another. That is the first precept. Educate yourselves. That is the second. Love and wisdom go hand in hand. And this is one time that we do want our left hand and the right hand to know what they are doing, right? There's another part of the gospel that says, don't let the left hand know what the right hand is doing. It's not talking about this, right? It's talking about something else entirely, right? But this is really simple. Love one another and educate yourselves. right? That's why we're here. Those are the two wings. So this is now different spirits. This is the Spirit of Truth in Paris in 1860 before this book was even written, right? This book was getting transmitted in the 1940s. So, right, there's a lot of confirmation here. So we are getting close to the end. This is our last message here. I'm going to just pause before we read this message and just see if there's anything anybody wanted to add, any other attributes of God, because I would love to take them into our closing prayer for us too. I'm just going to reread what we got. So we got God is compassion, God is merciful, God is justice, God is the beginning of everything. God is creation, God is supreme perfection, God is supreme science, God is charity. I love this. So these are things that we can tell ourselves. If we get stuck trying to figure out how to love one another, if we get stuck how to educate ourselves, if we get stuck how to apply what we've learned so that we can love each other better or make good choices with our education, let's think back to how we can turn that golden key. We can say to ourselves, God is merciful, infinite mercy. God is justice, infinite justice. God is the beginning of everything and the beginning of my wisdom. God is the safe place that you can always go, be yourself and find peace. Yes. So let this sink in. Let all of these truths about God sink in to the truth of who we are, because it's also the truth about us. As the children of God, we have that same spark in us. And a spark can turn into a flame with just a few waves of just a little bit of breeze. And our thoughts are that breeze, right? Our thoughts are that breeze. So here's our final message. And this actually is from the title of the book is Living Spring, and the title of the chapter is called Living Messages. It says, so there are invitations to spiritual growth and improvement everywhere, challenging us to act for the common good. Nobody is so unhappy that he or she cannot produce a few thoughts of goodness, nor so poor that he or she cannot produce a few thoughts of goodness, nor so poor that he or she cannot distribute a few smiles and kind words with his or her companions in the daily struggle. It is necessary to awaken our heart and worthily attend to what we are responsible for in the evolutionary drama of life, without hatred, without complaint, without discouragement. Life is what it is. Our companions in it are what they are. Each one of us receives the portion of the struggle necessary for our learning experience. The main issue is to obey God, loving God, and willingly serving one's neighbor. Those who have solved such a problem within themselves know that all people in all situations on life's pathway are living messages by which we may reap blessings of love and wisdom if we accept the lesson the Lord is offering us. So obeying God and loving God, sometimes difficult, but are made easier when we turn that golden key by simply thinking about God. And we open ourselves to acceptance by thinking about God, which opens this portal within us to the divine mind where all the answers await us. So that is our message for tonight. I want to thank you all for coming. We're going to prepare now for the Pass. And while we do that, I want to invite you all to get some water, a jar or a bottle of water, to be blessed by the good spirits while we receive the virtual Pass therapy. And let's go ahead and prepare for our passes now.
Let's prepare ourselves now for the moment of the passes and the blessing of our water. Place by your side a container with clean water to be blessed and magnetized. Dear brothers and sisters, no matter where you are in this moment, what difficulties you're facing, Jesus is always ready to come to our help. Place yourself now in a comfortable position, one that facilitates concentration and receptivity. Breathe slowly and calmly. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Fill your lungs with air and release slowly. Let the energy of tranquility and peace penetrate your lungs and circulate throughout your body. Your soul, in harmony with your body, feels peaceful and at peace. Let us think now about the passage of Jesus among us. In a beautiful and clear day, the golden rays of the sun illuminating the joyful landscape. Multicolored flowers, bouncing, chirping birds fill the landscape with optimism. The news of the cures brought a crowd of needy people around Jesus. Suddenly, Jesus appears, calm and serene. His white tunic is light and long all the way up to his feet. At the sunset, all those who were sick and affected by different diseases were brought to him, and Jesus, laying his hand on each one, healed them, as narrated in the Gospel of Luke. Let's mentalize now Jesus approaching us in this moment, placing his friendly hands on top of your head. Feel the presence of this divine master right with you, feeling like a waterfall of pure and crystalline waters start to fall from his hands, coming from his love to bathe you, falling on your head, streaming down your shoulders, bathing your whole entire being, bringing you peace, serenity, and balance, cleaning all impurities and pacifying yourself. Feel these waters bathing you, cleansing and purifying. Breathe. Now think of Jesus as a sun right before you, his light, his warmth, embracing you, enveloping you. Feel the healing emerging, emanating from Christ towards you. He hears your prayers. Trust him. His love is infinite. He is always by your side, protecting, offering everything you need. Trust him. Feel and absorb all these magnificent healing energies coming from Jesus in this moment. His light surrounds and embraces you. Feel these energies running throughout your body. Feel yourself re-energized, strengthened, and at peace. Dear Lord Jesus, our divine friend, extend your generous hands, Lord, and transform these waters into remedies for our physical and spiritual ailments. Hold us, Jesus, in your peace. Extend your vibrations of love for the benefit of my home, dear Lord. May peace, health, tranquility reign here with my family. We give thanks to you, Jesus, and pray that you stay with us today and always. Thank you, God.
So let's close in prayer. God is here with us right now. His presence is real in our lives. We feel the evidence of this through the beautiful energy of the past, which we gratefully accept and allow to do its spiritual work in our lives, in our homes, and in our beings. And we give thanks for this opportunity to expand our awareness, to receive instruction from the good spirits, from the Spirit Emmanuel, to help us to connect our identity with the infinite love and infinite wisdom that is the true nature of God. And we set our intention to hold this in our consciousness as long as we can. And if we forget how to do that, we remember the golden key, to just turn that gentle key in our mind that says it's time to think about God and all of the beautiful attributes of God. And so we give thanks for God's omnipresence, always here, God's infinite wisdom, omniscient, God's infinite power, omnipotent, that are always at work in our lives. May we remember this now and always, and may the peace of Jesus remain with us. So be it.